This is my site. These are my plans, sections, elevations, and perspectives. But what is the story of this landscape?
That is to say, how do we relate to landscape? And I deplore, and I can say that openly, I deplore the fact that in landscape architecture for the last 3 decades, we've flattened landscape to a two-dimensional piece of paper, and we've mapped the heck out of the planet. We haven't really revealed its body at all. We've just flattened things.
We need to embrace the multitude of outcomes possible in each and every design.
To compose an image is to create an everlasting metaphor. Cinema in its purest form is visual storytelling, and the best cinema can tell a story through something as simple as the arrangement of an image. Staging, framing, depth, balance. How do you present space? Out of all of the disciplines that coincide under the umbrella of cinematography, I wouldn't have much hesitation in saying that composition is the field's most fundamental principle. Why do I think this? Because deciding the placement of subjects through the viewfinder of a camera isn't merely a technical decision, it's an expressive one.
Can you?
In a nutshell, composition is simply how the elements inside the frame are positioned and exhibited to the viewer. It's a skill of knowing what to show and what not to show, as well as how to show it, or how not to show it. By intentionally directing the structure within a frame, you enhance the meanings of whatever it is you want to say with whatever canvas you want to work with.
Doesn't have to be good or anything.
I don't understand why any person would walk down here.
The question I keep asking myself is this about my story as a landscape architect? Or is this about the people and how they perceive the landscape and its experiential qualities? What's that?
Radioactive fish. What do you mean by that?
Lots of birds and wildlife traverse through this area.
This is my site. These are my plans, sections, elevations, and perspectives. But what is the story of this landscape? as stated by Christophe Giraud. Movism allows and introduces the very notion of relativity and subjectivity into our design work. How do we bring together two different stories? Is it possible to make a distinction between the two if we understand the continually changing atmospheric, temporal, and spatial conditions when we view it in this lens? As a landscape architect, can this allow for engagement or interaction within the physical world? By framing and sequencing a series of moving imagery on the site, this is the story of our representation of landscape. Can this story physically generate a perceived or real landscape intervention? I'm using this film to provide an alternative lens in which to view the landscape.
If an audience is to truly offer themselves to cinema, an acknowledgement must be made on behalf of the observer, to momentarily sacrifice their psychological and emotional bonds so that they be manipulated and moulded by the artist. The viewer must then accept that, as art is incapable of capturing one's own subjective experience, it can never fulfill all the questions of the individual. Art's preoccupation with secrecy can feast on the deepest parts of you, but its mysteries can also energize something profound within. I suppose cinema's true affliction, as well as its triumph, is that its answers are often destined to remain unknown.
They're not looking for a story that tells them who they are. They already know who they are. They're here because they want a glimpse of who they could be.